So right now, he basically wants to force the Islamic regime of Iran to surrender. Now, we have to get to certain things like these. We have some people who are also, for example, supportive of Israel and supportive of the US government so far, chime in and have some like really, really bad opinions on things, or really bad opinions on Iran, for example. Here's Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't follow Charlie Kirk much. I don't know much on what he says. I know he talks a lot about things like abortion and all that. But he says, this is insane. Regime change will result in a bloody civil war, killing hundreds of thousands and creating another massive Muslim refugee crisis. Topping a leader is never as easy as you think. It almost
Who wants
always
to top him?
Topping harmony.
No one wants to top that dude. I don't know what you mean by topping, but
topping a leader is never as easy as you think. Yeah, it's probably difficult. It almost always results in further involvement. Yeah, very, very much so. Too much involvement. A civil war and chaos. Resist this. Now, there are some people who share this opinion and who say similar things. For example, another such individual is Matt Walsh and others like him, who normally are not on the whole, insane side, but who say things like regime change is going to do bad things. We can't do that. We have to stay out of it.
Yeah, you can see why they're saying that, right? Because people keep trying it. They tried it in Iraq and so on, and in Afghanistan and so on. We keep trying it, it doesn't work. And so they think that since it didn't work in other places, it's not going to work in Iran. They think of Iran like along the same lines as these other places, when, guys, keep in mind that there could be disasters ahead. There could be I don't know. So anything, all this stuff is possible. Iran is not like these other places. They had a monarchy for thousands of years that was kicked out in the 1970s. So in my lifetime, I was alive when the monarchy was kicked out. The monarchy is still there. They're in exile. There are tons of people who would just like to bring the monarchy back. There are people who would like to establish a democracy. The point is, that's not the situation where, like in Iraq, let's say, you have Saddam Hussein, you've got a dictator in charge, and you have a bunch of people who would love, to run the country. And so you also have a bunch of jihadis and stuff waiting to start slaughtering each other as soon as they get the chance. And you can't maintain control of them because you have to be brutal towards them and so on. Iran, not like that. You have a large population who remembers the days before the theocracy, before the mullahs took over, and they're like, we would love to go back to something like that. They remember it. It's not something that they have no understanding of. You take lots of the other places. Lots of other places were kind of artificially made countries that were like, oh, here's the Ottoman Empire. Now the Ottoman Empire lost. Let's draw a new map and make a bunch of countries and put a bunch of people together and stuff. And it doesn't work as well. Here you have a basically proud people group with a long history, and they've basically been subjugated by radical Shia clerics. And they're sick of it, and they want it out of the way. And people are going, no, but a regime change never works. Here's the situation. If it can work somewhere, it can work in Iran. Because regime changes do work sometimes, and anyone in the United States should have some idea of that. But this is a place it's put it this way. This place is kind of more like more like us. When we had a regime change in the 1700s, they're more like us. There's a population that's kind of ready for it.
I have to say, so I will just make it very simple. If you, like Charlie Kirk or Matt Walsh or anybody else, think, oh, the last few times it didn't work when we tried it in Iraq and in Afghanistan and in all these other places, so therefore, if we do this in Iran, then it will probably result in a civil war, massacre, and another Islamic government. I'm sorry, but when you say that kind of stuff, you basically sound like, oh, all them frickin' Arabs. You can't trust all them frickin' Arabs. They all the same. I'm sorry, this is not an Arab country. Iran is not an Arab country. Iran is not an Islamic country. Iran is not even a Muslim country at this point. Iran is a country that was, prior to the Islamic Revolution, was one of the most advanced nations in the Middle East. It was a good partner of Western nations. It was independent from those around it. It is culturally, always was, and still is completely distinct, completely different. The population is not full of Islamic radicals. You do have an Islamic faction, and you did have an Islamic faction that took over and that led the revolution. However, that is because the Islamic faction worked together with others that also wanted to strive for a revolution. They had their dissatisfactions with the monarchy and all that. It's not like Afghanistan or Iraq, where there are huge chunks of or huge populations of Islamic terrorists who are basically part-time goat lovers, part-time fighters who want to go out there and fight and kill and die for Allah. Iran is not like that. Even the Islamist population in Iran is not necessarily like that. They are more for the political aspect. Although the mullah regime and the ayatollah regime, due to their power and due to their unlimited power, have become really perverse. If you break down this society, it will not be left to a bunch of factions fighting each other. It will not be left to Islamists trying to take over. We don't even talk about an alternative Islamist or Muslim government. We already have a government in place that would be ready to walk in and literally take over the country, and they even have a plan, like a 100-day and 1 year plan going forward once they have overthrown the government. And by the way, here is a poll. So polls from Iran are always a little bit questionable.
Hey, 1 second, just 1 second. Along the lines of what you were just pointing out, as far as like serious differences between Iran and other places. We've discussed this before, but 40% of the, you're also, unlike most of the other places we would talk about, you're also dealing with a Muslim minority population.
Yes.
About 40% of the population of Iran identifies as Muslim of any kind, Shia, Sunni, Quran only, and so on. That's very different from some of these places where you got like 99% Muslim population and so on, right? You're already dealing with a Muslim minority. You have a ton of religiously unaffiliated people. You have lots of atheists. You have Zoroastrians. You have Christians and so on. You have a pretty diverse group there. And they have one thing in common. They can't stand the 12er Shia theocracy that's been imposed on them. And so that gives rise to this poll result right here.
Here is the poll. Here is a poll of Iranian people. So Iranian people are asked, what do you think about each political system as a way of governing our country, Iran? Here are the results. Having a democratic political system, very good, fairly good, combined are 68% and 20%.
So almost 90%, almost 90% of the population says we want a democracy.
Yes.
Almost 90% of the population says we don't want Sharia. We want a democracy.
Even the second option here. So 20% very good, 16% fairly good, so over 36%. Even this second option is preferred to the third option, which is the current system, a system governed by religious law. The second option would be having a strong leader who does not have to bother with parliament and elections. Now, here's also the thing. This is not, some people misunderstand when we speak about the crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, who is currently waiting to basically lead the new Iran into the future. They misunderstand and think that we're talking about an absolute monarchy. We're not talking about an absolute monarchy. Reza Pahlavi, who is the crown prince and who is ready and who is whom Iranians mostly want to be put into power, he himself says that what he wants is a democracy. So he himself actually says, I don't even want to have establish any kind of power. I simply want to pave the way for a democracy. That said, lots of people agree with, for example, making compromise and establishing a constitutional monarchy
Yeah,
where
something
he
like
would be restored.
like the UK.
Yeah,
They could have a system like the UK where they still have their monarchs and they still have democracy.
where he would be restored as the monarch. So he would be the Shah, the king, and then there is under his watch there is democracy, and people can finally vote and do whatever they want. This is a very popular system, not much known to Americans, but in Europe this is very successful in many countries. So, in fact, many of the countries that are very very high in human standards and all that have constitutional monarchies. So this is what the Iranian people basically would establish in this case. And you can see that the majority of the population would be good with this. Here is so 19.2% and 9% say having a system governed by religious law. Unfortunately, there is still a part of the population that wants to go for religious law, but as you can see, it is a minority. It is a minority.
Yeah, you can compare this to something like other places where 99% of the population would want religious law. And then we say, let's get rid of the dictator. Let's help this nation get rid of the dictator and give them freedom and democracy. And what do? We want Islamic religious law. And that's what they use their freedom and democracy for. And then you say, what did we do this for? It did not help. Different kind of population here. You're dealing with a completely different country.
That is true. In fact, let's have a look at this here. Here is a Pew Research. This is from, when is this from? 2013, quite a while ago. So this was a survey about Muslim countries and whether they favor making Sharia the law of the country. Now compare these results to Iran. Here you have, for example, Afghanistan. Favor or oppose making Sharia the law of the land. Percentage of Muslims who favor making Islamic law the official law in their country. Now, when I look at this chart here, I really wonder what in the world America was thinking when they tried to overturn the system in Afghanistan and in Iraq. I'm sorry, the people of Afghanistan want Sharia. It's right here. It says Afghanistan, 99% of people actually want Sharia. Iraq, 91% want Sharia. So this is where the mistake is. When the US and Western nations came and tried to overthrow the system in these countries and forcibly change things and forcibly impose their Western values onto these nations, they did it against the will of the vast majority of the populations here, which is why it failed. You can see here, as we have just shown, that this is not the case at all in Iran. In Iran, people do not want Sharia law. People do not want Islamic law. People do not want to be ruled by the Islamists. They don't want it. They hate it. This is not like the other Muslim countries, which suck and which are not comparable to Iran. This is the problem. It's not about regime change. It's about where you are doing the regime change. Where you are doing the regime change. Here you can see a chart of this. Secular Republic, 33.6%. Not sufficiently informed to answer, 21%. Absolute monarchy, constitutional monarchy. So you have absolute monarchy and constitutional monarchy rivaling, and you have 22% voting for an Islamic republic here in terms of government systems that would be suitable for Iran. That's it. You don't have the majority of the nation supporting Islamic rule. That's that. That's that, man. That's that. That's that. In fact, so if your preferred political system, which of the following would you agree with for the function of head of state? This is very funny. Being appointed, elected for life, being hereditary, being a Shia religious authority. Look at this. Being a Shia religious authority, 71.6% disagree with this. 71.6% of the population of Iran, aside from 8.5% who give no opinion, disagree with the current system that the Islamic regime acts like is what the people of Iran want. They don't want to have a head of head of state as a religious figure. They don't want to have a Shia dude at the top of their government.
Compare that with the last one.
With the last one?
The one at the end there.
Being an atheist.
They would rather have an atheist than a Shia.
Look at this. Look at this. They would rather have an atheist. So people are even more against a Shia religious authority as leader than against an atheist as a leader in Iran. This is Iran. Iran is unique. Other Muslim countries are not like this. Iraq, Afghanistan, others are not like this. People need to inform themselves more on this kind of stuff before talking about it and acting like, oh, they're all Arabs and all the Arabs, they all bad. All the Arabs are terrible. All the Arabs, they're terrible, terrible people. So, Charlie Kirk, be quiet.
And Matt Walsh,
be quiet. Charlie, Earth to Charlie, stick to your repetitive talking points on Israel, which is helpful and great. Stay out of Iran's business completely and stop pretending as if you know the area. Thanks, buddy. This is an Iranian guy. So, look at this. The person here coming to congratulate him is actually Jackson Hinkle. Congratulations, Charlie Kirk. You have won the approval of Jackson Hinkle. Oh, very, very well done. Jackson Hinkle now agrees with you.